As President Donald Trump signs new executive orders, there is a sense of urgency among immigrants who are trying to figure out ways to protect themselves. One of the orders declares an emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border, and President Trump says the process will start to send anyone in the country illegally back to the country of origin. Trump has also said that the raids and the deportations begin tomorrow, Tuesday, which will probably be when this video goes up. Immigrants are not now only trying to protect themselves, but also their families, the homes they own, and the investments they've made while living in the United States. They now fear losing it all if they are deported. In Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, a mother was seen shredding tears. Oh my god, if only you could. Shedding tears after her CBP appointment was canceled on President Trump's inauguration day. In the past, President Joe Biden's CBP One Legal Entry program had allowed hundreds of thousands of migrants to enter the U.S. legally by scheduling an appointment on the app. Remember, all immigration is illegal immigration if you destroy all avenues for legal immigration. But they are all in favor. Remember, Trump is fully in favor of legal immigration. It just doesn't exist. In Northern California, Julian Sanchez Mora says immigrants are living in uncertainty as they wait to see the details of the executive orders. It's really dark times that we are about to face, Mora said, who works as an immigration attorney with Immigrant Crime and Justice, LLP, in Sacramento. He's been busy receiving calls in the last few weeks with people mostly concerned with being stopped by ICE or Customs and Border Patrol. The California Immigrant Policy Center has been hearing the same. Quote, "The biggest concerns that we're hearing from folks is mass deportation. That was a slogan for the Trump campaign," said Pollo Morales, who is the deputy director of, Pollo Morales, the deputy director of programs and campaigns with the California Immigrant Policy Center. Morales says every state is going to have an impact if mass deportations move forward. And it doesn't just involve the Latino community. Immigrants include Asian Americans and people from the Middle East and Africa, and they all have rights. Quote, "Just like any individual in the U.S., regardless of immigration status, everyone is entitled to protection under the U.S. Constitution. They have the right to remain silent. They have the right to an attorney. They should not talk to an immigration officer. They should enforce those rights," Sanchez Mora said. And if they are being detained on the street, they should ask whether they are being detained or if they are free to go. If they are detained, they should remain silent and ask to speak to their attorney. Quote, "We should not let fear take over us. We should prepare as much as we can. If you've been putting off consulting with an immigration attorney, you should do so. Find that there's a form of relief for you," Sanchez Mora said. Morales also expects there will be challenges made to some of the executive orders as they've been seen from the first administration. Quote, "But what do we know? Or what we do know is we need the state to be able to step in and be able to say, actually, it's against our own self-interest to be able to follow suit because it's going to have a detrimental economic impact on our state," Morales said. The California Immigrant Policy Center says now is the time to start carrying your ID and paperwork with you. And you should have an attorney's phone number in case you are stopped. That's right, guys. Immigration offices are now saying, carry your ID with you, carry your papers with you, and have an attorney's number. Because the stops are coming. The stop papers, please, that is coming. That is starting tomorrow. Remember, state of emergency on the border. My mom lives in Palm Springs, California. Presumably there's going to be a massive amount of military activity there now, stopping brown people and asking them for their papers. That's how it's going to be, by the way. That's how you determine is this they're going to stop brown people and ask them for their papers or their ID to determine they're a citizen. They're just going to stop you if you're brown. Nice tan, papers now. Dude, I'd be fucked if I get too much sunlight. Dude, when I was in high school, when I was 16, I worked as a lifeguard at a water park called Buccaneer Bay, and I was working the top of the slides, and this fat, drunk, redneck conservative came to the top of the slides, and he wanted to go down on his belly head first down the slide, and I told him he can't do that. And because I'd been sitting on, like, in the sun all day, all summer, I had a pretty toasty tan. I do have that Italian in me, after all. And the motherfucker told me to go back to my own country and then just sent it down the slide. Just, like, the last words he said were, go back to your country, sent it down that fucking slide. He got kicked out, obviously. But, like, that story, that experience stuck with me, bro. That shit stuck with me. Like, damn. Like, I'm white, dude. Like, I'm white. Like, I am white. But if I get enough sun, the racists will decide I'm not white enough for them. Like, they are that... And they're willing to accept Nick Fuentes. It's so weird. It's so fucking weird. I think the fact is that, like, Trump has appealed to such a demographic of mentally ill, insane people that it doesn't matter if most of them don't even agree or believe that Trump is going to achieve the same end goal. He's just appealed to them all, and they all believe Trump is going to achieve different things that specifically serve their outcome, you know? Like, Zionists think that Trump is, like, super pro-Jew. Nazis think that Trump wants to exterminate the Jews. It's like, Trump probably isn't anywhere on either of those positions, to be honest. He's probably somewhere in the middle, and yet both of these crazy fanatic groups support him, thinking that he's on their side. Have you ever noticed that? The Nazis think Trump wants to wipe out all the Jews. Zionists think that Trump is the biggest ally of the Jewish people ever. Both these groups hardcore support Trump. They both think that Trump has the same end goal that they have in mind. I don't know how. It must just be the marketing towards mental illness. And if they are being detained on the street, they should ask whether they are being detained and if they are free to go. Oh, sorry, I read this bit. But what we do know is we need the state to be able to step in and say, oh wait, no, we already read this bit. My bad. Are we done? Yeah, I think we finished reading that article. Okay. Yeah, this entire situation is, it's pretty concerning because it literally starts tomorrow. We don't know to what degree it's going to be. We don't know how wild it's going to get, but, like, the response has been pretty clear. Like, BBC, for instance, has even reported on Trump's position.
Trump has reaffirmed his commitment to carry out the largest deportation program in American history. Our correspondent Will Grant has travelled to the Mexican-US border city of Tijuana to meet some of those in a migrant camp.
These days, the road to the White House begins at the US southern border. Like no other issue, immigration raises tempers and brings out votes. For Donald Trump, it proved a winning strategy, and he arrives to the White House with both a promise and a threat to carry out what he calls the largest deportation in American history.
The border security measures I will outline in my inaugural address tomorrow will be the most aggressive, sweeping effort to restore our borders.
For migrants stuck in the Mexican border city of Tijuana, that's intended as a warning. Some have travelled thousands of dangerous miles to reach this point. Others, like Oralia, are fleeing cartel violence in Mexico itself. With her children, she's waited 7 months in this shelter to lodge an asylum request. But Trump's return, she says, has left her defeated. Now with...
Like I said, every Trump supporter who sees that, no hands orgasm. They are truly evil on the inside, and the reason why immigration was the highest polling issue of this election by far, and why Trump's side of the issue was by far the most popular side, is because the majority of Americans see someone like this, and the idea of them crying that they can't get into the country gives them a no-hands orgasm. America is a country of cruel, cruel people, and they want domination and victory and superiority for themselves in this country. Orgasms, bro, I felt empathy pain. Videos like this, like I said, when they see the left upset about Trump winning, it gives conservatives and MAGA no-hands orgasms every time they see it. It's the best thing in the world to them.
With lost hope of being able to cross, I'll have to find somewhere to live in Mexico and trust in God to keep us safe, she adds. People running migrant shelters are worried that things are about to turn very ugly.
Te recuerda que nos agarran por dos frentes. We're being hit on two fronts. Firstly, the arrival of Mexicans and many other migrants who are fleeing violence. But also, we'll have the mass deportations. We don't know how many people will come across the border needing our help, but together, that could create a huge problem.
In the shadow of the border fence, a handful of migrants and activists gathered to voice their opposition.
I really liked when they filmed a really cool set piece scene here in Fear the Walking Dead, this spot.
To Trump's policies. But in truth, they'll struggle to be heard over the clamour of those in the US calling for a crackdown. It's important to distinguish between rhetoric and reality when it comes to Donald Trump and immigration. For all the talk of building a border wall, only 80 miles of new fencing were erected during his last time in office. Now, of course, he's threatened to deport millions of undocumented people.
Dude, birthright citizenship is on the shopping block. You're right, Scrumpled Milkskin. I'm surprised one of these videos hasn't brought it up already, or the article before, but that's a big one. Birthright citizenship Trump is going to be axing. That means that being born in America used to mean you would automatically be granted citizenship because you were born in American soil. Trump is going to be eliminating that idea. You will no longer be a citizen just by being born in America. You'll have to have, I guess, been born to American citizen parents? Like, it's gonna definitely mix up the system quite a bit. Like, how are newborns going to be considered a citizen? Like, is it their parents' citizenship that makes them a citizen? What if they're born overseas? Are they still a citizen? Like, what the actual fuck? Yeah. Ashram, Americans are really stupid. You got, like, this is what they voted for. Like, this is, like, I need to be very clear, guys. Of every single thing on the ballot, this outcome is what those who voted for Trump wanted the most. If you could nail it down to anything, this right here is what America voted for. Trump promised them this, and America said, yes, please. That is where this country is right now.
From the United States, and people here, for now, are taking him on his word. Of all those most immediately impacted by Mr. Trump's return to the White House, undocumented immigrants inside the US and waiting at the border are perhaps at the top of the list. As he delivers his inaugural speech, they're bracing themselves for the executive orders which will follow, and which could radically change the way the country's immigration system is run.
Oh, Trump signs executive orders and withdraws U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement. I think that was from a while ago. I think he did that a long time ago. I think what he's doing now is the Green New Deal. He's pulling us out of that. Whew. How Trump plans to deport 4% of the U.S. population.
$315 billion. That's one staggering cost estimate for Donald Trump's signature campaign promise.
The largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
More conservative estimates are still enormous. One group puts it at $162 billion. That's more than the government spent on most federal agencies in fiscal year 2024. We'll explain why an operation of this scale could require hundreds of billions of dollars over the course of a decade.
Is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it, and it's a very tough thing to do.
That means roughly 13 million immigrants who entered the country illegally are at risk of deportation, about 4% of the U.S. population. To put that into perspective, the entire U.S. prison and jail population in 2022 was around 1.9 million people.
Scale is difficult for the government to carry out.
Aaron Reichlin-Melnick is a senior fellow at the American Immigration Council, a liberal immigration group.
Trump would have to do more than quadruple current ICE removals of people arrested in the interior just to hit the levels that we've seen previously under Obama.
I think that you take a sequential approach to it. You start with what's achievable. Let's start with 1 million.
The details of the plan are still being worked out, but let's say Trump does decide to deport 1 million people a year. That could still cost about $88 billion annually and take 11 years, according to one estimate. And that's assuming 20% of people would leave on their own.
Yes, it's expensive, but the trade-offs, I think, are well worth it.
Ron Vitello led the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency known as ICE for a year in Trump's first term.
Right now, the government is underfunded for its ability to detain people. To be able to accomplish this and the border mission simultaneously will require a reallocation, if not an infusion for resources.
Other immigration experts say the actual cost of Trump's mass deportation plan will be much lower than the American Immigration Council's estimate of $315 billion.
A more robust enforcement like the administration is contemplating may create significant economies of scale.
Stephen Camarata is the director of research at the Center for Immigration Studies, a group favoring immigration restrictions that helped staff Trump's first term.
Once you start doing it and you get an infrastructure in place, then it might be a lot cheaper.
Deportation starts with arrest.
There'll be targeted arrest. We'll know who we're going to arrest, where we're most likely to find them based on numerous...
This is Tom Homan, the incoming border czar. So this is him explaining what the plan is.
A lot cheaper.
Deportation starts with arrest.
There'll be targeted arrest. We'll know who we're going to arrest, where we're most likely to find them based on numerous investigative processes.
We're starting with the criminals, and we got to do it. And then we're starting with others.
Trump says dreamers, or people who entered the U.S. illegally as children, might be an exception. To make arrests, ICE officers would either identify someone who's already in a jail or prison, or go to a person's home.
Police, come to the door.
The majority of undocumented immigrants are not in law enforcement custody. Most of them have never committed any offenses.
Arresting people out in the community, known as at-large arrests, isn't a common tactic for ICE. Vitello says it's more logistically complicated and more expensive, but it's at the center of the Trump administration's plan.
I'm not concerned that they won't be able to find them. It's just a matter of time, given the circumstances, given the availability of information, and given the resources in play.
At-large arrests often require multiple federal agents and take several days because ICE officers don't generally have warrants.
Immigration violations are not criminal, which means that a judicial warrant to arrest them
That's true. They don't have a warrant, you don't have to open the door. That's a big thing you need to know. ICE agents cannot, I don't think they are allowed to break into your home, and they are not, you don't have to open the door for them. So like, they'll stake you out and try to war of attrition you, but you don't have to let them in. And they can't get a warrant. Trump might change that, but that's the case right now.
Not have probable cause. They might have to wait hours for the person to leave their house. Yep. They might have to stake out a work site.
Yep.
To carry out arrests at this scale, the American Immigration Council estimates ICE would need to hire over 30,000 new law enforcement agents and staff, making it the largest law enforcement agency in the federal government. Vitello says this number is overstated, and that state and local law enforcement could be directed via task forces to help with at-large arrests, something they already do.
Having that referral system, having state and locals help ICE officers do their job. Better to have it than not, but not definitive in whether they do the work or not.
Then there's detention, the most expensive part of the whole process. It costs around $200 a day to hold someone in ICE custody. Congress has provided enough funding for at least 41,500 detention beds in fiscal year 2025. But that's not nearly enough to detain 1 million people a year. According to the American Immigration Council, ICE would need to construct 216 soft-sided facilities every year for 11 years. Soft-sided facilities are temporary tent-like structures that have typically been used near the border. Anyone not physically detained would be placed on electronic surveillance, which costs approximately $4 per person per day. Private contractors involved in every stage of the detention process could drive up prices even more.
Contractors drive people in between ICE detention centers or drive the vans after somebody's arrested.
Detaining children would also make this process more expensive.
I don't want to be breaking up families, so the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together and you have to send them all back.
Family detention is the most expensive kind of detention because the U.S. government is required to give people minimum standards.
We all know how good Trump's record was when it came to those detention facilities and not separating the children and their families. He actually famously kept the kids and their families together. It was actually like a big talking point, big story, if you guys remember, that like he did so much and ensured that the families and the children didn't get separated. Really big story at the time. You should Google it. Trump family separation. You just Google it. Very big story.
And those children need to have child welfare professionals on site. They need to have pediatricians on site. There needs to be a provision for them to get schooling if they are going to be held for months or potentially years at a time.
Vitello says,
to be fair, they're fully defunding the Department of Education, so there's going to be a lot of free funds to go to this deportation initiative, right? They're also going to, pull all funding for Ukraine, no doubt. So that's going to be a little extra bit of pocket change freed up for this initiative. Wasn't he threatening Canada and Denmark? Yeah, Trump wants to annex Denmark, or annex Greenland from Denmark, and then use Greenland as a northward or a northern operating base to invade Canada from both the north and from the south. Because the goal is to obviously annex Canada and make it the great state of Canada.
One way the government could reduce costs is by repurposing existing detention centers like Guantanamo Bay.
A third country like a Panama, potentially Mexico, could agree to hold third country nationals so that their due process could be adjudicated, thereby lowering the costs and kind of sending a message down the pipeline that people are not going to be released into the United States to await those adjudications. That alone will reduce the number of individuals trying to cross the border illegally.
Camerata says there are over 1 million immigrants who could be detained at a much lower cost.
There are people with a final order of removal that we just never made leave. Those individuals shouldn't have to be held long. We can get them out very quickly.
After detention comes legal processing, which immigration law experts say is the biggest bottleneck in the mass deportation process. An additional 10.6 million cases would require nearly 2,000 more immigration judges and over 1,100.
I'm upset Trump won, but the Dems share part of the blame. Hey guys, who remembers when earlier in the stream I said the immediate response is always, no, it's the Dems' fault. Either you are such a victim of the thing I'm complaining about that you don't even know, or you're part of the problem. And I don't know which it is. The Dems, particularly Biden, were the most progressive administration we have ever had as a country the last 4 years. Biden was walking the picket lines for union strikes. No Democrat has endorsed striking before. For starters, bro capped insulin prices for the elderly. He literally, I think gave the most federal funding for healthcare for disabled veterans ever in American history. I'm just rattling shit off the dome right now. I'm not reading a list. I'm rattling shit off the fucking dome. Boring ass policy, okay? And I know you're chill, Game Master. People are stalking you because they don't know who you are, but you're chill. I've seen you in chat. My point is that damn, they did so fucking much. But the focus from everyone was on nothing shit. Shit that did not matter at the end of the day if you did not want fascism winning in this country. Yeah, but the Dems' mistakes were really bad. What mistakes did the Dems make? I know what you're probably suggesting, and it's that that Biden didn't fully revoke all funds to Israel. Listen, guys. Do you want to know why the US can't do that? Period. Why the US will never revoke funds to Israel? Isn't it 60 or 70% of Israel's defense budget comes from America, or is given by America? It's something huge, right? Now, as much as Israel is doing a genocide, I don't disagree with you there. Israel also has a civilian population, and that civilian population gets bombed on a pretty regular basis. Okay? There are terror groups that attack Israel, and when they do get bombed, there are cases where those bombs get through the defenses and they hit civilian populations and they kill people. And those people don't deserve to die just because Israel's government kills Palestinians, by the way. That's not how I don't think anything should work. But I don't think that those civilians in Israel, who make up nearly half of the world's Jewish population, mind you, should be left completely unable to defend themselves as the Iron Dome and other defense systems continue to age out of relevance, particularly as Iran continues to fund the groups that are attacking Israel and even attacks Israel themselves. The idea of revoking our support for defending Israel specifically, because to be clear, if we revoke our support financially, which would be the leverage we have, if we actually follow through on that, we leave a U.S. allies' civilian population to be wiped out, potentially, mind you, by anti-Semitic terrorists And that population who would be wiped out is like nearly, I think it's 49 or 48% of the world's Jewish population is Israelis in Israel. So like Biden, if he had revoked all funding from Israel, like literally just said, sorry, no more funding for Israel now, within a year, like tens of thousands at least of Israelis would have been killed by targeted attacks on populations. And I promise you that would have hurt Biden a lot more. And it also would have made the situation even worse. At the end of the day, it is an unwinnable situation. And if you're one of the people who has been trying to pin Biden for supporting Israel, as every single American politician ever has and always will, then you're just part of what got us here. Like, you can say, oh, it's the Dems' fault, it's the Dems' fault. They should have done something that they could never, ever have done. But, like, you live in a child's fantasy world. Like, you're the same as someone saying, like, had Bernie won, Trump wouldn't have won in 2016. Though, to be fair, a lot of you probably think that. Nope, Biden could pressure Israel, and he didn't. What else could be a reason that fucking Trump, of all people, managed to secure ceasefire? Hey, we got lefties buying into it, too. God damn, dude. I assume that person is a lefty. They could just be a Trump supporter that's, like, trolling in chat. But look at that, guys. We got lefties coming in to make excuses for their not supporting Biden by saying that Biden's accomplishments are Trump's. Trump totally achieved a ceasefire when he wasn't president, by the way. And, by the way, how many times have you seen lefties deny that Netanyahu, or Trump told Netanyahu not to accept any ceasefire deals from Biden? How many times, like, remember when I covered that story, and how many times lefties in chat have had a little meltdown when I bring that up? Like, no, that didn't happen. Biden's just pro-genocide. Trump literally told Netanyahu, probably at one of their Mar-a-Lago dinners they've had together, not to accept a ceasefire agreement. Several of Netanyahu's administration and cabinet came out to, like, leak this. Man, back in May this happened. Well, I appreciate the extra info. Netanyahu is already trying to tank the deal. Well, to be clear, Trump's son-in-law has called Gaza prime beachfront real estate, and has said that once they have, flattened it and turned it into rubble, there's going to be some great, like real estate development opportunities there. But, hey, it's the Dems who are the genocidal ones, of course. Have we talked about the Elon salute yet? No, we haven't. No. All right. At the end of the day, people can cope and seethe about how we got here as much as they like, but the fact is, Trump got those that are on the side of conservative politics enthusiastically shouting his name from the rooftops. He made supporting him into a movement, and he didn't do it himself. To be very clear, it was not the Republicans or Trump who did it. Trump had the help of a million grifters who all had a vested interest in feeding into this one guy, making him such a massive recognizable brand that their being loyal to him would pay off. And now it is. Joe Rogan is now fully a MAGA shill. He recently had Mel Gibson on as a guest to talk about how hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin cure cancer. Not even joking, just straight up, Joe Rogan and Mel Gibson talk for about 5 minutes about how ivermectin is the cure to cancer, and the health industry, or like the big pharma, won't let us know. They won't tell us, and they'll legally pursue you if you dare to tell the people. Not the ivermectin shit. Remember back when the pandemic was the plandemic? Who remembers that? Remember the virus was from China, it was the plandemic. It was not even a real virus in the first place. Reality can be whatever I want it to be. The famous Thanos clip. Bro's got the reality stone. I saw that clip, still can't believe that's the guy who made Braveheart and Apocalypto. He starred in Braveheart and Apocalypto. I don't know if he made them. Did he like direct them? I don't know. I just rewatch the ending of Braveheart every once in a while to see Mel Gibson's head get cut off. Spoiler alert, I guess. It's always funny. That's a term I haven't heard in a long time, the so-called plandemic. Isn't it great how quickly these, like, right-wing talking points just kind of fade into obscurity, you know? Like, the second the right starts to get embarrassed by saying or doing a thing, within a month we've all forgotten about it. It never sticks to them. It doesn't get to be, like, a sticking thing. But if I look up... What do you think comes up if I look up triggered glasses on Google? Triggered glasses. There it is. The fourth result. This video is now what? 12 years old? 13 years old? We're over, this is well over a decade old video or an image, and yet everyone recognizes it. People who weren't sentient when this picture was taken recognize this image, and it pops into their head as an association with feminism and the left. That lady wasn't even triggered. That is honestly what makes it so perfect. It's such a perfect example because this screenshot, if you want to know the context of where it was taken from, it will blow you away. It's from a video in which a guy, a hardcore MAGA guy, is at a Trump rally, or at a rally where there's like a Trump supporter, or a bunch of Trump supporters, and one of these MAGA guys starts getting angry and shit-talking the immigrant or like non-white Latino Trump supporters there, and she starts arguing with the rest of the MAGA crowd about how that guy isn't welcome there, because those MAGA people were fine with a Latino Trump supporter. That specific MAGA guy wasn't. And so they start, like, she starts debating with, like that guy she is debating with MAGA people on her side. People holding Trump signs are behind her, like, on her side in this argument. And she is arguing with this guy, and he says that, like, the immigrants, that the Latinos are coming to rape women. And she's like, a certain percentage of men end up committing rape, period. We don't think that all men are rapists. Those are the words coming out of her mouth there. It's a loud crowd, and people are yelling at both of them. And so she's, like, having to enunciate her words so you can kind of read her lips and still understand her in the crowd, the other person. And she's saying, well, we don't think that everybody, like, more men than women commit rape, and we don't think that every man is a rapist. And so she's kind of enunciating with her lips just so you can really read what she's saying through the crowd so she doesn't have to scream. And that's why she's not loud here. She's actually not yelling, and the reason why she looks like this is so the guy can still understand her without her raising her voice in the loud crowd. And yet, a single expressive screenshot was able to be taken, and that alone, I mean, people can run with that. That's all it takes, a single funny face. What? I watched your Asmongold Political Compass video, thought it was really based, but flicking through this stream, it's super cringe and sad. No matter what Trump says or does, it's wrong, but every left-wing point is super valid, apparently. You have no idea how much you're projecting right now, Newfie Skitzy. Like, name one thing you don't like about Trump. Can you name one thing you don't like about Trump, Newfie Skitzy? I'm very curious. Like I said, though, my main point is that that shit is infinitely recognizable. The right makes these things, these memes, these talking points, they get embarrassing, and then within a month you don't even remember it. It doesn't stick to them at all. It's ridiculous. Regardless, though, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable, please consider leaving a like and a comment. They help a ton, especially if you're watching this as I am live. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications if you haven't already, so that YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload new videos. And of course, follow my social medias, linked down below in the description. And if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, StreamElements, Patreon, or buy some merch through the Streamlabs link down below in the description. Regardless of how you support me, though, thank you all so much for watching, as always, and have a good one.